Welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. This is where you get the latest updates on business, finance, economy, market, as well as investment information. If you couldn't follow us live on television, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, press the notification bell so that you can get notifications. Thank you. Enjoy this video. All right, welcome back to the program. Professor Ken Ife is joining me here, an economic advisor to ECOWAS Commission. Prof, good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we have a lot to discuss. We were just saying during the break, and you actually told me that you're not happy when you looked at the report of Oxfam, the wealth gap report, the one globally and the one Nigeria. You just opposed it, and you're not happy about that. Talk to me about your sentiments.
I've followed their report over the years, but this particular report is very damning on Nigeria, and I think it leaves more to be admired. When I compare the two reports, it's just like it juxtaposed the global report on Nigeria. There's no such thing in Nigeria as 60% generational wealth. I mean, Dangote alone is over 60% of that wealth, and you can't ever tell me that it is generational. He didn't get anything from generation. And then he also talked about cronyism and all of that. Whilst I do accept the analysis at the global level, because colonialism was partly responsible, largely responsible for what is going on up there. And then there is a continuing aggressive and repressive and extractive economic relation between the global north and the south, like Africa and Nigeria. So that's fine, I understand that. And so all of those have continued to perpetuate all that dependency that we have. So you can understand and excuse the analysis, the diagnosis, and the prognosis of the global report, but they hardly apply to Nigeria. And then the other thing that could be more helpful is that when you give these reports, try and point the economy to a more realistic direction. In other words, it's not just about robbing Peter to pay Paul, collect more tax and distribute it. It's not going to work because other countries like China and India that have made tremendous progress on distribution of wealth didn't do it by taxing the rich and then spreading it out and handing it out to the poor. That is not how you develop, and that's not how you bridge gaps. You think about more inclusive approach. You honor those who have invested their resources in reversing the obvious conflict between making us an import-dependent economy and making us a supplier of raw materials. Those who have reversed those have actually saved this country. When the Dangote refinery has reversed what we are seeing in oil and gas equation, then it deserves to be recommended, appreciated. Then those who have invested heavily in raw materials to make sure that we are no longer just an exporter of raw material, but we are value addition. We are adding value to our raw material. They have to be recognized. And then you now talk about how they should expand their supply chain, how they should make the supply chain more inclusive, how they could do more on social responsibility, how they could do more with their foundations to impact the poor, how they could do more on local content to ensure that their companies add more to the economy, and then how they could use their wealth to support things like green economy, sustainable buying, sustainable development, all of those areas. They are telling them how they could impact poverty in a more realistic and constructive way than to lavishly say they just tax them and then carry the money and share. That's not how we're going to develop their country.
Okay, I will come to that shortly, but let's take a look at what the report actually said, that, contrary to common belief, the report said that 60% of billionaires' wealth originates from inheritance, that's generational wealth, monopoly power, or crony connections. In the case of Nigeria, is there anything different from that? The people that are super rich, the ultra rich amongst us, not all of them though, because there are a lot of people too that grew from the ranks and all of that. Would you really say that this does not happen in Nigeria? That if you know somebody in the corridor of power, or you're even a friend to this child of a president or something, connection, even in this Abuja here, that you can just know one person and your fortunes change. Prof, are you telling me that doesn't happen?
It happens all over the world. It has nothing that makes it an exception to Nigeria. Because remember, Clinton came here and said that $600 billion of our oil money are stacked away all over the world. Point at that, because that is our money that is out there.
Who took it? Who took
Two,
them
wait,
out?
wait a minute.
Yes.
Secondly, we hear so many tax consultants saying if only Nigeria can join the tax without borders of OECD, about $50 billion of profits of Nigerian companies abroad will come to Nigeria. Look at that. It's a big gap. Now look at the fact that our economies have been hostage to a division of labor, an international division of labor that makes us simply a supplier of raw material and with no power to add value to our products. And then when you have indigents of our country that go and invest their money in reversing those and adding value to our resources, we have to be more considerate in the way we describe how they build their riches. And if I can look at those 4 people you mentioned, let me just take one of them.
Prof, are you saying that the rich among us, or the super and ultra rich among us, build their wealth justifiably, negating what Oxfam said, that they don't have access and influence around the corridors of power? Is that what you are saying?
Access and influence around the corridors of power is a common denominator across
You mentioned
all the
Dangote
whole
earlier.
world. Everybody does that.
Everybody does that.
All over the world.
Good, but there are some countries that even billionaires are being interrogated. Even billionaires are businesses. South Korea is one of them, where a tech billionaire was jailed, arrested. I think she was even capital punishment to be meted on her. Even the China you talked about, billionaires don't act anyhow in China. You see a different set of billionaires in Asia, in the Asian region. Even in the Americas that you're talking about, the billionaires seem to be a lot more responsible than the African extraction. I'm not even talking of Nigeria now. Did you also read in that report that 99% of the billionaires in Nigeria do not pay taxes or avoid paying taxes? So this country, this economy is surviving as a result of my tax and perhaps your own tax. What would you say about that?
Well, what I would say, I mean, you also have to look at Elon Musk and what the challenges that he's bringing and how he's spreading his wealth and how he hopes to. But anyway, the fact of the matter is this. There are 4 billionaires in that equation, and I don't want to take the 4 one by one. I can only take a proxy, because Dangote represents over 60% of all of those 4 in numerical terms. And let me use that as an example. You tell me the biggest challenge facing Nigeria was, if you remember 1974, 75, we had cement crisis in this country. We're only producing 20%, and then you have all the cement being dumped in Nigeria. And you remember when Obasanjo came in and said, look, we're going to do something about this. Show me your factory, and then I will allow you to import clinkers. Dangote rose to that challenge. Today, Nigeria is a net exporter of cement. And then all these African countries where he has cement factories are now buying clinkers from Nigeria. He has transformed that, not by cronyism, not by generational wealth. Secondly, we all suffered for more than 10 years on oil and gas, and then so-called subsidy. You are producing crude that you can't refine. You have 4 refineries that can't produce. One man spent 20 billion in building a big refinery. If government was to build that refinery, it will cost government 60 billion, 3 times more. If government gave contract to build the same thing, it would have cost 3 times more. Somebody borrowed money to do that and now changed the whole equation. Nigeria is now going to become a net exporter of refined products. That money he's borrowed, everybody knew he borrowed it. It wasn't generational wealth. And then you can go on and on and on. And then what you are going to see is that he's actually going to reverse to make Nigeria the processor of refined product for all of African countries. That is what's going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years. So we have to temper, these facts with the reality, because it's not exactly the same situation that we have.
Now, Prof,
and then what they prescribe, the prognosis doesn't actually match the reality.
The prognosis
that you want, the prognosis are saying just tax the hell out of people and share that. There's no such thing as sharing. You talk about how to get them to invest in the correct location of our weakness, which is making sure we add value to our God-given resources, mineral resources, agricultural, natural resources, and then make us net exporter of those to generate more. Tell them to work on their supply chain to make it more inclusive so that more Nigerians will enter into their supply chain. Tell them how to invest more on their foundations that are reaching out. then tell them how to be more locally responsive, buy local. We know that, so that they can patronize others. So there's so many recommendations. And then go and fight those money that are escaping the country and stashed in foreign banks.
Prof, the question is not even around perhaps demonizing our billionaires. And I want you to also
I think that was how I saw it.
No, okay, saw the report, demonizing them. It's also about how do we create a balance? Because the inequality, I've been following this inequality report for a very long time, and I've been discussing inequality for years. In fact, one of the years I discussed, he's late now, Professor Omudiwe, you should know him, may his soul rest in peace. We discussed very well, intensively on inequality in Nigeria, even excluding Oxfam. So it seems that year in, year out, it worsens. That is the issue. That's actually what I'm bringing. It seems year in, year out, many Nigerians are getting poorer. In fact, poorer to poorest. And our billionaires, the rich, I'm not even talking about the poor, wherever, the rich amongst us are getting richer. So we need to interrogate why that is happening. That is actually what I'm saying. Are the macroeconomic policies only favoring the rich and excluding the poor? How do we now begin to, calibrate that imbalance between the systemic poverty in Nigeria and the exploding wealth that we are seeing? That if 4 people can just, their whole money will just fill the whole of Lagos. That means all of us there should go and start and try and see if we can pick $1.
No, but let me tell you something.
500 notes.
We are placing the blame at the wrong door. You saw what happened in Nigeria. 33 trillion naira was printed that had no recourse to the economic benefit.
Prof,
it just printed the money.
Prof,
and that was inflation.
At the wrong. My question now talked about imbalance and macroeconomic policies. I'm not placing the blame on the billionaires. If I have the opportunity to be a billionaire, I will be. Nobody will want to reject that. But I'm saying that what is wrong? There is an imbalance somewhere. Yeah. And it's not just in Nigeria, it's also globally.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I was saying to you that the reason behind the imbalance you are referring to and the extreme poverty that is exacerbated is in the way government has managed the economy. We printed 33 trillion naira that does not relate to increased productivity, and simply inflation just went multiple times, and people got more poorer. That is just one item there. It is just the policy, that how it has melted away people's opportunity to recover. So that is the major culprit. If people now made money from that process, then it's a different story. That is a different story. But the first thing is what cost it. Government borrowing.
And people made money from that process, even the FX subsidies.
Absolutely.
Even the FX subsidies, which even the central bank has mentioned. And
who
are the people that made the money? Not me and you.
Absolutely.
It's still the same people.
You couldn't say that. You couldn't say that those 4
within the
were the people that made money from.
No, I'm not saying the 4. I'm saying those that have
the people that made money
undue
from
influence. I'm still saying it's the people that have a romance with those in power.
Well,
we are both Nigerians, and we understand what we're saying. That I'm not even talking of the 4. I'm talking about even the billionaires in Nigeria. You've seen over the years the billionaires in Nigeria having even undue influence, or perhaps even public policy. That's public policy reforms. Or even take a look at governors now. Take a look at what just happened. The VAT thing we're talking about. Correct. So what are we saying? You're looking at that sharing formula, the new VAT. There's no innovation around that new VAT formula as to how do we industrialize the states. That's what we're talking about.
I understand.
So go ahead, Prof.
I know what I can accept. I can't criticize somebody for being creative in making money from money that is being thrown in the air. And then you cannot prove to me that those 4 were the ones that made all that money from printing to 33 trillion naira.
Prof, we're not saying 4. I did not mention 4. Please get it right.
Yes.
I'm asking, is there an imbalance in our system, economic system, that continues to widen the inequality gap? You said yes. How do we address it so that the poor can also feel inclusive? So that the poor, I mentioned at the beginning, not to eliminate poverty. Poverty, I don't know where, okay, I think Australia at the time had is it 5% unemployment? Okay, no, that's unemployment rate, or was it poverty rate? There are some countries that have very minute, perhaps the Scandinavian countries, have minute percentage of poverty. That's what I'm talking about, where the system works for everybody, whereby I can, as a person, say, okay, perhaps from this humble work that I am doing, I can give myself perhaps 10, 15 years. If I'm being creative, like you say, and I have personal finance, intelligence, and all of that, I can be assured. I'm not even talking of billionaire status now. Just for an average Nigerian to live beyond, now I think it's $6.95, whatever they put there as the World Bank. That's what I'm trying to talk about. So don't zero it. I'm not zeroing it in on the 4 billionaires.
Okay.
If I'm being given an opportunity to be a billionaire today, of course I will be. Everybody will take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Prof.
Right. If you look at how many countries have gotten themselves out of poverty, the Asian economies did that by export-led growth. And when you do export-led growth, it presupposes that you are going to add value to whatever God has given you, which are solid minerals and natural gas, all of that, and then also raw materials, and then bring in technology, and then produce goods that are exportable. Now, export allows you to develop the entire value chain up to where you started. So that's why a lot of them got hundreds and hundreds of millions out of poverty. Then there are the Scandinavian you mentioned, there are United Arab Emirates and the oil. Some of them got natural wealth from oil and gas, and they invested them in sovereign wealth fund, and that is helping them. Then the others, like in the UAE, they got their oil wealth and decided to play back the oil wealth and invest the money in developing their city, developing their looking into other areas and developing them. We have got our own. We never actually use them to build the other capacities to earn money.
We're talking about
we haven't
people
even
met the
used
president
them,
yesterday.
We haven't used them to develop to even add value to our agricultural produce and even refine those products to be able to export them. We use them in other things that made us more hostage. So that is part of our challenge as a country. And then we have a government we have inherited over the years that want to spend beyond their means. And then when you spend beyond your means, you have three ways to deal with them. You actually tax people more to pay for all those things you are requesting for, you are borrowing, or you go borrowing to meet what you are, or you go and print money. These are the three things government does when they want to spend beyond their means. In other words, when they want to have a deficit budget, they have to either go and tax people more, or they go and borrow the money, or they go and print money. Any of these three will bring poverty knocking on your door.
Let's take a look at even the social welfare programs that have been introduced, not just during Buhari or Jonathan. We had Shopee, we had a lot of programs, even then introduced by the former finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Social welfare programs now, okay, as a result of the removal of subsidy on petrol, this administration introduced social transfer, cash transfer, I think 25,000 naira a month. How far have we gone even with that? So if we take a look at our social welfare programs, what systemic barriers really prevent these programs from lifting millions out of poverty? And like I told the Minister of Finance when he was on the show some time ago, I told him, a nation cannot be lifted even on tokenism. You can't just burst into prosperity based on tokenism, that you're giving your citizens 20K or 25K or whatever it is. You need to build a robust economy that if I'm able, I can be able to do one or two things legally that will make me prosper, my business will grow. So let's interrogate our social welfare programs, the way we've been doing it.
Yeah, there are two things in development. We have fast lane, and then you have the slow lane. The slow lane is where you try to balance inequality, where you try to take care of the most disadvantaged in the community, or what you call those who are experiencing extreme poverty and that needed help. That is the slow lane, and that's where you bring in your social programs. On one hand, social program may well have some palliatives, but palliative is not a sustainable method of growing an economy. It's just to cushion just to cushion you for a short while before you join the productive force. Then you have some element of the social program that focus on developing the social skills to do health, education, entrepreneurship, and employment programs. All of that are accepted as human resource development. And even lending and borrowing, according to our fiscal law, allows government to even borrow money to put on social development. That is, I've just described which one is, it's a human resource development. Of course, the second one is when you are investing in the fast lane. The fast lane is where you, whether it's government money or borrowed money, you invest it in productive activity, which has the potential to generate income, or which has the potential to grow your economy. Now that is the fast lane. So this is where you look for the most pushful, the most entrepreneurial, and then invest in those productive capacity, infrastructure, productive activity, technology that enables them to produce and generate returns. Now, those are the two things. The balance of them will show how far we can go. If you think you want to follow us more on social, then we've got a long way to go. But if you balance it appropriately, the infrastructure required will come in, then the investment in productive activity will come in, and as well as give you the capacity to carry those dead end, to carry the dead wood. So it's going to be a balance.
Prof, let's take a look at perhaps the structural barriers that we have right now. The structural weakness in our economy now, I'm talking about now, perhaps from 2024 till now, or since this administration came in, that prevent ordinary Nigerians from climbing the economic ladder, and how they can be removed. We were having a conversation last night when we talked about, when you were saying, okay, a lot of people I mentioned a lot of people are jackbuying and all of that, and we're having that conversation. And from my own analysis, from my own, even when you look at it, you see that even those jackbuying, you will jackbuy because you have money to go, because it's not done. Poor people don't do that. It's millions that they used to, to leave the country. And these are people that perhaps could have been in the middle class of the country.
If they have employment.
If they have employment. Some have also left the employment spaces.
If it's not paying them.
Yes, you
go to
the banks now. You go to the banks now. Majority of their staff that are okay have left the country. Technology staff, they've left the country. These are Nigeria's middle class. These are Nigerians, as it were, that also have skills, leaving us with a quantum of people that in our labor force, and I don't think we're even ready for that now, because our labor force now is unmotivated. If a lot of our labor force, they went to school, but they did not go to school, and school did not pass through them. There are a lot of our labor force right now that are not as competent that could even compete with people outside the country. So what am I saying? With this class of people now that have gone, or that are still going, I saw in the papers today, CMDs of hospitals, chief medical directors, are lamenting profusely that people are leaving the hospitals by the droves. These are professionals. So where does it leave our health industry, for example? Where does it leave other sectors which I've mentioned? So what structural weaknesses do we have right now that if this administration is reading this report and say, President Tinubu has promised prosperity, how do we now get an ordinary Nigerian up the economic ladder? For those of us that are still remaining.
If we take it sector, you mentioned health. Let's look at your health sector. Yes, irrespective of the picture you are painting on labor shifts and movements in the health industry, we still have $3 billion we are spending.
Prof, I'm not the one painting the picture. Is there?
No, I'm talking we're still spending $3 billion on medical tourism. So the question is, if our own customer base is going abroad to receive treatment to the tune of $3 billion, so why is the infrastructure, why is the health infrastructure and establishment not restraining those who are going abroad and then worrying about the core staff and other potential staff that are going abroad? So that's got to be something. We've got to look at how that industry is being structured and is being run, and then look at how you can improve, because the issue is about the industry. It's the readiness of that industry. So that's why you look at private insurance, private health insurance coming in, because that is what accounts for the growth of health industries all over the world. In UK, in America, almost 30% of people's salaries in America go on health insurance. And that health insurance funds the hospitals. So we're going to have to look at how we can structure those hospitals and make them stronger and more attractive, and they can pay decent salaries for these people who are looking for a job that guarantees them even livelihood. Some of the salaries they pay them can't actually pay their rent, let alone feed them and pay for transport.
That's actually why,
so water
why I
has
asked
to
that
find
question.
this level. If they have to find a job abroad, they will have to invest money on transport and finding the people to go there. And it's not a loss to Nigeria because it is a gain in manpower. We get them trained better. They send us some remittances, which run in billions of dollars.
But they will not start, those that are Japan now will not start sending us remittances in 1 or 2 years.
But those who are there are already sending tens of billions of dollars. And don't forget that we have a lot of medical professionals out there that are yearning to come back. They're yearning to give services, to work on telemedicine, to do something.
But they're also talking about the imbalances in the economy that is not also making them come back. I've spoken to a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora and even those that are willing to come back. And they tell me, Nancy, this place, I would love to come back even with my family and start up a business, but I'm not certain of the regulations. I'm not certain of what government will do. The environment is not too conducive. I know you would, of course, you live.
I'm going to say something. Of course, you
lived in diaspora for a long time.
Of course, I'm one of diaspora for 3 years in UK. Now, Obasanjo came to UK in his second term, and then he said, "Oh, Nigerians, you should all come back." And I asked the question, "What jobs have we got? What are the things?" He said, "Oh no, you know what? Just stay there and let us have your resources and see how you can work with us." So the fact of the matter is that they don't really need to come back. We need their services, we need their money. So if they can invest and then you can work virtually. There are so many ways that you can.
Teleservices.
You can work. There are so many ways you can work.
Telemedicine.
You can come here and do 1 month in a year. Some are coming in here. All kinds of methods that you can work virtually or otherwise without having to physically relocate. We don't want them to physically relocate as long as they're sending money here and investing here and then working with us.
So you don't like me as a person, but you like my money. Now, Prof, you seem not to have also answered that question which I asked earlier, which is around the structural imbalances that we have now. Now, let me situate my question better so that you could understand. Interest rates now are high, 27.5%. Perhaps this year, too, we could see interest rates going higher until inflation is tapered, or whatever the MBS comes up with their rebasing. That's one. Number two, inflation is very sticky, as we have it now. And inflation, of course, is a thief, that even the poor, it makes them get poorer. Yes, gets poorer. So with macroeconomic indices like this, what can we do as a matter of urgency? Having also in mind that the removal of fuel subsidy, the two subsidies, including like Governor Cardoso will say that there was FX subsidy too, which was even higher than the petrol subsidy. So with these effects, how do you think that it can be addressed that will reduce poverty? I'm not talking of inequality now.
Well, you know, inflation that you kept mentioning is the greatest single macroeconomic parameter that drives tens of millions of people instantly into abject poverty. Its effect is instant, and it doesn't know class. It's everybody. It affects everybody in one way or the other. So you have to tackle that. And then the macroeconomic balance that you need to be able to tackle inflation points to so many things. One, it points to what are the types of inflation. There are 4 different types of inflation. Call it stagflation, for goodness sake. Stagflation is the most complicated form of inflation. That's what Nigeria is experiencing. And we need to understand that one of it is cost push, which means rising cost of everything, electricity, gas, load, all of them are rising. And the input costs are rising, transportation costs are rising. So that's why you have that cost push inflation. So you're going to have to be in a position to temper all those costs. Then you have the one that is induced by the money supply, which is the one that was induced by your printing of money. So it's what they call demand pull inflation. You have so much money that is produced everywhere, and then it's not chasing fewer goods. That is, and the central bank is tackling that, and they're all sucking out some of those money using interest rates that are higher in the area of bond yields, and then treasury bills high 20%, 22%, to suck away some of these monies. Open market operations, they are doing their best. But it's not going to be all that is. You have import dependency of our country that makes us keep importing, and we're importing inflation. into the country. You've got to tackle that. And Forex sits in the apex there, determining how much money you are going to buy, the dollar you are going to use to import. So you've got to have a handle on that. And I'm sure from what you see, CBN is actually having a handle on that side of it. But there's a fourth one that is a bit problematic for all of us. And that's the food index that is very, very high, 39.9%. And that, I'm telling you, is not something Nigeria alone can solve, because a lot of it is from the neighbors that surround us that are consuming our goods, our food, because our exchange rate, our dollar, our naira is so much devalued compared to their CFA, about 80%. So you cannot close the door, you can't shut the borders, because you'll be violating the ECOWAS Treaty. So we have to do more on food production, and you also have insecurity affecting food production. So all of those need to be, is a big melting pot. It's a big cocktail of things that have to be addressed simultaneously to be able to bring that inflation down and then make the value of the money that people have able to buy more.
Okay. Prof, just as we close, and in 2 minutes, I would like you to take a look at this. As to the solutions, one or two. I know you've been saying a lot while we've been talking, but if you can give me like 2 concrete things that perhaps this administration should focus on in terms of reducing poverty, as well as we live in a society where wealth is celebrated and poverty, as it were, is stigmatized. How do we begin, to shift that narrative, to shift that focus on systemic issues rather than blaming individuals for their circumstances? For example, of course, we saw the stampede for food during the holiday, and the president, even in the media chat, was seemingly blaming the philanthropists as it were. So issues like that.
Food is number one, and the government did something good by declaring a state of emergency on food, and they're now beginning to follow it up. But we need to do more on food. The situation is pathetic, but that's one that we have to do something on, because if you look at basic human needs, food is number one. Before you talk about clothing, before you talk about shelter, those are 3 basic human needs. Then, of course, energy is critical, because without energy, you cannot have the technology to enable you to produce more, or to refine, or to process. And then energy gives you the comfort of having to put your air conditioner on or have light or whatever the thing. The energy is so pivotal. And then he's got those 2 on the front burner. But then you want to make sure that a lot of it also comes as renewable, because when you put renewable, then you are now involving more people, you are getting more inclusive, everybody can participate in a renewable energy platform. So it involves more people, so which means agriculture component of renewable energy will play in, then as well as solar that is free will play in, and all of that. So I think if government can get a handle on these 2 and continue to do that, then we'll move significantly faster, because energy poverty is also a critical factor.
All right, thank you very much, Prof.
My pleasure.
The seat was not too hot for you.
It's always has been.
Today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I've been speaking with Professor Ken Ife, who is an economic strategist at the ECOWAS Commission, and we've been talking about poverty and the inequality gap in the country. Please join me again tomorrow, same time on this channel. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Bye for now. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.